This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we are in Maine. I am here with Gagne Foods. Since 2006, this family-run company proudly manufactures fine frozen baked goods on the coast of Maine, where taste is the cornerstone of their brand. I am joined here with the owner and CEO, Michael. Thanks so much for joining us here today.
My pleasure.
I'm going to start off a little bit about yourself. You were formally educated at the University of Maine. For 17 years, you were the executive chef for a restaurant, the Robin Hood Meeting House. Now, for nearly the past 2 decades, you proudly manufacture fine frozen baked goods, still on the coast of Maine. Share with us how far back really baking and the passion for baking began for you.
Well, I started working in Old Orchard Beach at the age of 14 and never, even though I wanted to be a lawyer, I never quite departed from food as a living and a lifestyle. So I'm actually not a baker. I make frozen food. You become the baker. All our products are freezer to oven, so they're really effortless, and they're all made with exceptionally high ingredients. In my tenure at the Robin Hood Meeting House, where not only I was chef, but I was also the owner, we did a fair amount of baking. We used to do a lot of off-premise catering, so everything was in-house, including the wedding cakes, etc. So I have a fair amount of experience with confectionery and working with chocolate, etc. It's not really my favorite. I mean, I prefer open flame and, sauteing and things like that, as far as, because baking really requires the difference is.
Yep. I mean, they're two different things. We're talking about chefs and cooking and baking. I know women and guys that basically they can do one, but maybe not the other. I mean, you now offer many food items, yet this really all began with a biscuit in Virginia, where you were inspired to challenge the traditional Southern biscuit recipe. What is unique about the technique that you developed?
The biscuits in Virginia were awful. But I'm really talking, I'm not talking about the light, fluffy kind. I'm talking about the beaten biscuits that they used to use for tailgate parties. I was at the Red Fox Tavern for 8 years, which is the inn of the hunt country. And we used to do these. The first time I tried them, I just couldn't believe them. They're really the answer to the Confederate armies. They're really hardtack is what they were. They were made to be put in your backpack and kept for a couple of years, in case you got hungry. So we developed kind of like which would be referred to as a blitz method of puff pastry mixed with biscuit making. So the fat's actually cut into the biscuit. In our cases, the fat is butter and cream cheese. We cut that into the biscuit and then we laminate it. They're the best biscuit in the world. There's just no denying it. I mean, you can't. I'm going to send you some because you haven't tried them, so it's very difficult for you to.
Nothing like what you had back in Virginia. Obviously, nothing that you've seen back then like that at all.
No, and the recipe really did evolve from there to the Osprey in Maine, where I was for 8 years before the meeting house. And the reason that we decided to do this is because we used to serve a bread basket that had 4 or 5 different kinds of freshly baked breads every day to every table, and people would always ask for more biscuits. Can we have more biscuits? More biscuits, okay, which kills your dessert sales, by the way. But so I said, you know what? We wanted to we wanted to follow the Toll House cookie model in terms of branding the restaurant, right? Because I built a restaurant in the middle of the woods. And we were trying to, and that's how all this started.
Yeah. I mean, when you started, your goods were born in the kitchen of a chef-owned restaurant on the coast of Maine. I mean, it was known as the Robin Hood Meeting House. Are these biscuits still folded and cut really with the same love and now provided to the public, or just to some select bakeries and partners that you work with?
We sell those biscuits internationally. And all over the country. I want to tell you that when we first bought the laminating equipment, I was worried that as you said, the love that normally flows from handling dough, et cetera, that feel that you get. And I was worried that might not transmit. But the machines, to be truthful, are better and less stressing on the dough than, so I was incredibly surprised. We used to put a lot more layers into it. We had 72 in the beginning. We cut down to 24. It was a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously the machines were designed and built by some humans that knew what they were doing. I mean, let me ask you this. What began in a chef-owned kitchen, still today, your R&D team is led by an award-winning chef with years of experience that you have. When creating innovative dishes and unique flavors, is the secret always putting taste first?
Yeah, many people will, many companies, and these are people who are much smarter than I am, will start with looking at what's on the shelf already, establish a price point somewhere in the middle, work backwards to ingredients I can afford to meet that price point, and we don't. Okay, what we do is, wow, this is good. It's got tons of butter. And we make a pastry that has 75 pounds of butter to 100 pounds of flour. Okay, it's a pâte brisée classically. So we start with that. We start with how can this is the best that I can make it. Now, how can I make it with using these machines? And that's a trick. It's not simple, and it's not easy. And it's part of the reason that we're probably not much bigger than we are, because that's always been my focus. And, a person's greatest strength is also their greatest weakness. So,
I mean, whether it's biscuits, pies, or rolls, the ingredients make all the difference. Why has baking, cooking, and creating with clean, simple ingredients really been the foundation for what you provide?
Well, I'm French Canadian, and I had a French Canadian mother who was a pretty good cook. Not trying to look back. She's gone, but God bless her. And that sense of family and the sense of community. Like, for instance, if you came into my house, you'd have a drink in your hand before you got your coat off, and a seat at the table, whether or not you were invited. You know what I mean? It was that kind of thing. And it was never a question, and we wouldn't let you feel uncomfortable about it. And so I've always had that kind of sense of the hearth, feeling. My restaurant served very formal, not extremely, but pretty formal food, but in a very informal setting, which is why the people who did come and continue to come really loved it, because it wasn't stodgy. The food was well prepared, but it wasn't stodgy, and no preservatives, no GMOs, none of that stuff ever. So it's who I am. It just speaks to really who I am.
Obviously, we have to thank your mother and your family that has instilled some of that great love for cuisine in you. I mean, your customers know these are just better biscuits because you use real butter, whole milk, cream cheese. Can you actually taste the buttery richness in each bite, would you say?
Oh, yeah. You can, to some extent, you can actually see the butter particulates in the product because I can't share the secret of how we do that, but...
Right. Because of the proprietary laminated dough making process, not only is the taste unique, you're saying, but there is actually a distinctive look that your product seems to have as well. Is that right?
Yes, they look like little pucks when you get them, but they grow and they blossom. They smell great.
I mean, beyond biscuits, you create hand pies, scones, fruit tarts, cinnamon rolls. Are some of these items available as a take and bake? And has that been kind of popular? I imagine that increases the shelf life.
Yes. We have a number. Well, we operate in 7 different channels. So, we have club stores. We have worked with Sam's, but we've been working for 14, 15 years with the Bay Area in California. We do a big in and out there in the third quarter every year. We're looking at we also have done Costco in Texas. We're not really big on the retail side. Most of our biscuits are in-store bakeries. In other words, where different stores take them, bake them, and then put them in their own packaging, baked in their bakeries. That's a big push for us. Also, Whole Foods hotlines. We have a fair amount of business there, and we do a lot of private label work for mail order companies that again put my biscuit in their packages. We have reinvigorated. We're trying to reinvigorate the Robin Hood Meeting House brand because we've let it slide over the years. Being so difficult takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to have a successful CPG brand.
Yeah, I imagine so. I mean, all the places that a consumer can find your product out there. Do you have a place on your website where you actually show where they may be? I imagine that's kind of hard to keep up. Or is it best for just consumers to go into Whole Foods online and put in the name of your product?
Yes and no. It's very, very difficult for one to keep up the find a store on our website. And of course, you can order our products through Stonewall Kitchen. They were our first customer. You can order them directly on our website. Of course, you got to pay shipping for next day air. They're available baked at Hannaford, which is 140 stores locally in this region. Yeah, if you can't find them, let us know. We'll
quite a few places people can find those out there. I mean, like you say, you're always expanding. It's hard to keep that list up. I mean, most of us are familiar with biscuits and cinnamon rolls. Two of the items that I've never heard of are pie bites and galettes. Can you kind of educate our viewers what these are? They sound like French, but I'm not too sure.
A galette's an open face tart pie. So think of it as a pie without a top. Here, when you laminate, you really want to go square. Why? Because you have less rework and less scraps. And the more you work your scraps, the tougher your dough. So the less that you have, the more tender and etc. So almost all our products are square for that reason. So a galette is a square piece of, again, that dough, that pâte-brisée dough that has 75 pounds of butter to 100 pounds of flour. We fold the edges in and fill the center with fresh fruit fillings. We're also working on savory fillings now too, but the fillings are not cooked fillings. The fruit in them are still raw, which makes, I think, an incredible difference. Most places use cooked fillings for ease of pumping, but we have developed methods of using uncooked fillings. So the pie bites are same ingredients really, except they're small. They're 1.5 by 1.5 they weigh 2 ounces with an ounce of filling. So it's roughly 50-50 filling to dough. You can't quite pop them in your mouth. You know, they're a little too big for one bite, but they're a two bite deal. And
depends on how big your mouth is, I was imagine.
Right.
You're getting me hungry just talking about all this.
Let them cool too. Don't eat them right out of the oven because you'll get pizza mouth, no question.
Excellent. Michael, naturally, taste comes first and has been the cornerstone of your brand. Family, friends, and neighbors can still gather around the table and enjoy food that you have always felt good about serving. Is this still rewarding work for you?
Yes. So at least it seems to be while I'm talking to you. I went to college with the idea. I mean, I cooked my way through college. It took me 6 years with the idea of being a lawyer, and that just never materialized. I don't regret that because lawyers bring pain, to some extent, right? So do doctors. So, I don't bring pain. I have brought families together at rehearsal dinners and weddings. I have brought lovers together and had people propose in my restaurant. I've had, so I'd like to think that, when it comes to Judgment Day, that the scales will be balanced with, a guy that brought more joy than pain. Now, my coworkers might disagree with you, but yeah.
That is great. I mean, I'm sure glad, and I'm sure a lot of folks out there are glad you didn't go the legal route, but instead decided to bring a lot of joy and taste to people's lives. Viewers, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen out there. What you're going to see is their website. On the website, you can learn more about the Gagne food story. If you are a bakery or an organization looking for a variety of options for regional and seasonal products, they will work with you to create bakery and food service programs to delight your customers and really just drive sales. Once again, that is Gagne Foods. Clean, simple, real food where taste comes first. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV. And if you don't know, now you know.